Welcome into an Inside Carolina Postgame podcast. I am Tommy Ashley. That is Sherrell McMillan joining me today. Carolina beats Clemson on senior night, 67-63. Whew, Sherrell, I'll let you start us off with some opening takes, but we knew, and like we talked about off the air before the game, it was going to be a battle, a rock fight, slugfest, and it certainly lived up to that for sure.
Yeah, you remember the game back in, was it 96? When Clemson fouled, their whole team fouled out. They had like 3 guys left at the end, and there's like 47 personal fouls. It wasn't quite on that level, but it was close. It was a very physical game. And I think going into it, Carolina knew they weren't going to be able to play offense the way they had played offense the last couple of games. Very free-flowing, Trimble getting downhill. They had to adjust. And the adjustments weren't pretty because, Clemson kind of dictated how the game went. And I do think you have to give Carolina credit because even though they weren't playing their preferred style, they still adapted and, found a way to win. Again, can't be overstated without Caleb Wilson. And I think people, because Carolina's done it now 5 times out of 6 games without Caleb Wilson, the assumption is that, oh, that's just, they're that talented. They're not. They just have bought into really playing a style where everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to do. And that Trimble has stepped it up. And really just every game, somebody steps up that you maybe don't expect or maybe bounces back. And to me, that was the biggest thing is that, another game where someone stepped up and they found a way to win. And that's all that matters, man. Like, yeah, it was ugly. It was gross. We won't think about this game much ever, but they found a way to win, and they've been doing that without Caleb Wilson.
Yeah, and there's no pictures on the scorecard, right? It goes down as a win. Carolina wins by 4. Ugly free throws. We've talked about free throws might be an issue. That missed and 1-and-1 came down a little bit. But just a lot, to your point, a lot went right in that game, and a lot of guys stepped up. I thought Jarin Stevenson, and we'll talk about everybody, but I thought Jarin Stevenson, when he got blasted in the face, it woke him up, and he had a big offensive rebound there. Just a couple stats for folks that like them. Carolina shot 38%. Overall, 43 for Clemson. Carolina did shoot 44%. When was the last time that happened, Sherrell? Carolina outshot themselves from 3 than they did from 2, and 73% from the line. Rebounds, Carolina ended up getting 1 more rebound than Clemson, which was surprising the way it looked. And then, of course, bench points, 27. It's always like that on senior night. Clemson did dominate the paint. And Sherrell, let's talk about that a little bit and how Carolina was able to win even with Clemson dominating inside. R.J. Godfrey had the game of his life. Nobody could do anything with him. Veesaar certainly couldn't. And yet Carolina was able to withstand that because a guy like Luka Bogavac, who people in the chat are recognizing, I said way back in the preseason, kid's going to go for 31 game because he shoots a lot and he can heat up. So not quite, but he certainly was a big part of withstanding Clemson inside, being able to beat Carolina
up. For sure. Veesaar, he has had a heavy load. I don't know if you follow some folks on Twitter, but Daggum Box Scores, a friend of the program, basically had a graphic that showed the minutes played this season, and the load that Vasar has carried, even missing that 1 game, is just far beyond what you would expect for someone of his size, and then his ability to stay out of foul trouble. That was a big question coming into the season, was like, can Vasar not foul? Because he drew a lot of foul, or had a lot of fouls called on him last season. And just the way he was able to maneuver, still kind of play through the offense. He got 2 fouls early, and he didn't get his third until I think midway through the second half. And it seemed like the game plan was to kind of go into his chest, and maybe that doesn't happen with Caleb Wilson, around. But I think to Vasar's credit, after he gave up 7 or 8 shots against Godfrey, he really kind of walled up those last 3 or 4 possessions. I think he had a block, forced a really bad miss, and then got a rebound on another miss. So I thought his defense down the stretch was better than it was throughout most of the game. So that was, one huge key. And then obviously we can talk about Bogavac. I'm going to read something to you, Tommy. It's a portion of the program called Reading. Saturday against Virginia Tech. let's see, Luka Bogavac. He had a 79 offensive rating, which is not good. 5 points, was 0 of 2 from 3. Derek Dixon on Saturday against Virginia Tech. 2 points, 0 of 2 from 3. We do the coast to coast on Sundays, and it was like, man, Kyan Evans and Jonathan Powell really stepped up. They played so well. Can they find more minutes for those guys? And I think what's really unique about this team is that yes, Wilson and Veesaar and to some degree Trimble are like kind of the big three. But on any other night, you're not exactly sure who is going to be the fourth and fifth and sixth guys. And that can be bad, but it also can be good. Because in a night where Powell didn't have it going, Kyan Evans didn't have it going, look what Luka Bogavac and Derek Dixon did tonight. They were 9 of 13 from 3 between the two of them. They combined for 29 points, and they only had 2 combined turnovers. So you're starting 3 and you're starting 1 were not great on Saturday, and the bench pulled them up. Today, the bench wasn't that great, but the starters pulled them up. So I think that shows a lot about maybe not the talent of the team, but how they work together, how they work in concert, and how they really are a dangerous team going into March because they're confident, the roles are defined, and you just don't know who's going to give you what on a particular night. And again, you have to give Hubert Davis credit because once he finds the hot hand, he rides it. And he did it with Powell on Saturday and Evans on Saturday. And he did it with Dixon and Bogavac today.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you mentioned those two guys on Saturday, and Kyan Evans and Powell today were combined 1 for 8. And so the flip there, when you watch it, you see this team and you say, well, if everybody fires on all cylinders in one game, maybe it's Saturday night in Durham, that they can beat anybody. It's going to be interesting to see how when Wilson comes back, we talk about defined roles and all that, how those roles match up with Wilson back out there, because he's going to eat up 30, 35 minutes. And so those guys that have been playing those are going to have to adjust to it. But to your point about Veesaar, and I think it's an interesting take. I saw somebody in the chat or on the message board say this is a game why he comes back. But it's also a game why he's as good as he is too, because he did the things you talked about. He doesn't like that heavy physical presence, and he doesn't like get beat around. I would not like getting slapped in the face as much as he does either. I think we can all agree with that. But to see him, make that drop step dunk there and do those type things with the length he has can be a special player when he stays on the court. And Sherrell, let me ask you this just straight off the top. I think he's more valuable on the court than anybody else on the team, and that includes Caleb Wilson. And I think the numbers, when they both were healthy, showed that. What's your take now?
Yeah, I think Adrian Atkinson, who does a lot of stat stuff and just general smart guy stuff for IC, I think his numbers have basically showed that. I mean, in his last Friday, basically the numbers with him on the court and off the court are pretty crazy. And that's why, we talked about earlier the heavy load that he's had all season. That's why he's had it, because even though Zayden High has played so much better since Caleb Wilson got injured, there's still just a huge difference between Henri and High. And that's nothing against, Zayden High. Like I said, he's played well, but there's just so much that they do through him defensively. They funnel stuff to him most of the time, or sometimes he has his length that he's able to either, contest shots, maybe get a block or alter shots, make it harder for someone to shoot over him. Offensively, you can just watch the offense and see that everything basically runs through him, whether it's, coming, setting screens, rolling, popping, short roll, whatever it is. I think he had 4 assists tonight. So even when he's not scoring, he's finding a way to impact the offense. And, I think the word gravity is overused a bit in sports now. It was cool and now it's overused, but he really does have gravity because, when they see him out there, they're like, is he going to pop? Is he going to roll? Is he going to post? What is he going to do? Because he's got just a very versatile offensive game, and that gives Trimble and Dixon and everybody else space to do what they need to do. It helps Bogavac. You saw a couple of times where it was Veesaar setting the screen that Bogavac was coming off of, one of those catch and shoot situations. So, I don't I won't argue with you. I know why some people would say Caleb, but I won't argue with you if you say Veesaar at all. I think the numbers back it up.
Yeah, it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be an interesting dynamic when Caleb Wilson comes back, whenever that is, if it's against Duke, or if it's in the ACC tournament. And that's one reason why Greg Barnes and I talked about, the 5 seed's not a terrible spot in the ACC tournament because you get an extra game against a lesser team to work that chemistry back in there. But we'll see how that shakes out. Talking with Sherrell McMillan here on Inside Carolina Postgame, 1,200 plus in the chat on a weeknight. It's impressive for Inside Carolina folks. And also, do me a favor, hit the like button on the YouTube channel. Do all that. Subscribe if you're not a part of the YouTube channel. It's blown up, but there's still a lot of people that watch this channel and don't subscribe. So we need to get those numbers up. And then when you get the podcast version, certainly rate, review, and all that. And support Johnny T-shirt. Sherrell, let's look at the guard play. I have one question for every team that Carolina plays. Why do they let Derek Dixon get to that spot? He's hit 3 huge shots this season from that same spot on the court. Just sort of speak to his play tonight and the up and downness, I guess, if that's a word, of how he's played. I mean, that's just pure freshman stuff, right? Still, I mean, granted, it's March 3rd, but he's still a freshman, and he's still up and down. Tonight, he was certainly up.
And I think part of it is, there are some things that limit him just in general that he doesn't have any, excuse me, real control over. There's athletic limitations that he has, especially playing in a level like the ACC where there are so many fast, quick, tall, there's a variety of guards in the ACC. So I think defensively, he's got that he's trying to deal with. And then offensively, his story is all the time. A freshman point guard at Carolina, even though the coaching staff has changed to some degree, it's still a steep learning curve. There's still so much processing, so many sets, so much memorization. Then there's so much feel that has to be involved with it too, of when do I attack? When do I not attack? When do I, set up Veesaar? What am I supposed to do on this set off of this action? There's just a lot of processing that's going on. He's this sharp dude and he gets it, but it's hard to be consistent when you're doing it for the first time. I think what he has shown, though, over and over, is that no matter how the game goes the first 35 or 36 minutes, he's going to make plays when it matters the most. I mean, that's Kentucky. It's probably Virginia. He was really good in the second half. The biggest games, Kentucky, Virginia, Duke, this one, where he's just made winning plays, big shots over and over and over again. Now, I think the hope is maybe he can kind of bottle that and stretch it out over the previous 36 or 35 minutes, but they'll take him in maybe not quite a closer role, but just knowing that he has that confidence to knock down shots and make big plays in these situations is huge as they go into the tournament. Because like you said, the guard play is kind of the bugaboo for this team. They've done better. Don't get me wrong, they've done better, but that's still the one maybe not the one question mark, but that's still a big question mark. Is like, can Dixon and Young and Evans and Trimble and Bogavich and Powell to some degree, can they make the necessary plays, make the right reads in critical situations to make sure Carolina's offense is humming the way it's supposed to be? And, Dixon has done it in the clutch. You just got to do it, consistently moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to do it all the time because, who knows when the clutch moment's going to pop up. And if you don't make plays when it's not clutch, you might not have the opportunity to make them when it is clutch. But Dix, go ahead.
What was funny though, it's not really fair to compare teams because rosters are so different. But last year's team was as guard heavy as pretty much as you can get, with multiple guys who could break guys up, down off the dribble, shooters, kind of everything you needed. And that team was really bad in close games. They just couldn't close it out most of the time because they were down by 24 and had to fight their way back. But they didn't win these close games. Whereas this team, with Dixon at point guard, without Wilson sometimes, with Trimble at the 2 guard, they've found ways to close all these games that have been tight. Ohio State, all these one possession games. Ohio State, Kentucky, I think was one possession. This was close to one possession. It's 4 points. Virginia got close at the end. Syracuse got close at the end. On and on and on. I'm forgetting, but they found ways to win them. And that confidence is going to be huge for them, knowing that they've done it before.
Absolutely, and you got to give credit for Hubert Davis for giving them that confidence and for having them in position. We've talked about him all the time about in-game situations and stalling it out and all that. And when it goes sideways, well, when it goes well, it's shown to work. And this game was big for Carolina. There's some people that say it's Clemson and they should beat Clemson and all, but Clemson's a good ball club and they do not match up well with Carolina. With what they do well and what they were able to do physically. And Carolina was able to get it done. Sherrell, there's 1,300 people in here. They always want to hear you talk, so I'm going to set you up again. Let's talk about Luka Bogavac. I think he can be very, very good for this team. But then, like you said, we see where he's very bad and he's out of control. But tonight, he got in that flow state, We've all had it on the rec basketball court, never had it in Dean Dome court. But Luka looked good doing what he's capable of doing and not doing what he's not capable of doing. And that's shooting off the jump and shooting off the screens and all. Your thoughts on his play and how he's progressed and how his play in a game like this or this type of play changes this team, I think, a little bit.
You've had nights like that, Tommy, in Woolen or at the Y?
I put up 42 in Woolen in a rec game. I ain't gonna lie, I hit, But it was probably against Billy from science class, but
Well, good for you. I never had one of those games at Woolen, maybe in Bolinwood or something. But no, Luka, man, Sean Moran, who's an analyst for IC, he talks about Luka's numbers all the time when you look at him off the dribble versus catch and shoot. And catch and shoot, he's like an elite shooter. And it's kind of like, well, if he's an elite shooter and catch and shoot, why doesn't he get more opportunities for that? And part of it is, they have Veesaar, they want to run things through him. But I think they also just sometimes it's hard in certain situations to get on the ball, and then you have to have a quick trigger, especially when you're coming off those screens like he was tonight, to be able to get it off. So it makes you wonder, like maybe they should run more stuff from him. But a part of it for him, man, it takes a while to get comfortable. Like, can you imagine Tommy Ashley? You said you put up 42 points in a Woolen Rec League. If you've been in America your whole life, never left and really gone anywhere, and then you get a call from Montenegro and they're like, hey, we want you to play for the Montenegro national team. And you come over there and you don't speak, you speak some of the language, maybe a little bit, but you're away from home. You're in a new place. You're going to class, which you haven't done in some time. You're adjusting to a different style of basketball. That's going to take a while, right? Like if that happened to you. And I think it's the same thing with Luka, man. He has shown bright spots, but he's also, like everybody else, shown inconsistency. And it's just a matter of getting used to playing basketball with this particular team, with this particular style, against some of the more athletic players than he normally played against in the ABA. So you're starting to see it would come to fruition. I wouldn't take this and assume it's just going to be a linear path forward where he's just going to get better each game. I think if anything, this UNC team has shown is that you just really, outside of Trimble, Veesaar, and Wilson, you're not sure who's going to give you what on any particular night. And again, like we were talking about earlier, that could be a bad thing, but it also could be a good thing because you have so many options. And Bogavich he's had a couple of games like this. He was good against SMU. Of course, I'm going to forget when I start naming him. But there's been a few games this year where he's been really solid. He's good against Louisville, because that's a perfect example. So look at the last 8 days of Carolina basketball. Last Monday, Trimble goes for 30. Luka Bogavac has maybe one of his better games at UNC from a all-around perspective. Jonathan Powell was nowhere to be found really against Louisville. Didn't play well. Saturday comes around. Luka Bogavac is nowhere to be found. Jonathan Powell plays really well. Kyle Evans plays really well. Derek Dixon is nowhere to be found. 3 days later, same thing. Luka Bogavac now plays well. So it's just taking turns back and forth. So I wouldn't assume that this means Luka has arrived and he's going to be able to do this every game. It doesn't mean he's not going to be, but I just think it means that Carolina's going to continue with so many options that as long as one or two other guys are having a good game, they'll be fine.
I was listening to you and reading the chat. I mean, this is not a fish story. The fish doesn't get bigger the longer it goes. But anyway, there's video of some stuff out there. It's on it's not VHS. What was the other thing we had growing, like a beta, the little small tape, Betamax? So
that's before my time.
no, you're not that much younger than me. But anyway, there's a chunk of woolen floor in the garage too as well. I had to take the floor with me. Anyway, Sherrell, let's look ahead a little bit since I won't get to talk to you again.
One last thing for tonight. I want to make sure we're giving the flowers correctly.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you have a group chat, right, that you talk to during the games, whether it's
Absolutely.
friends, alum. Yeah. What were they saying about Jarin in the first half? I'm just curious.
What would you expect them to be saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What were they saying about everybody in the first half?
Yeah, exactly. So I think you have to give him credit for, coming back after such a poor, I think, first half. Specifically, I guess before the flagrant, kind of him before and after the flagrant were like two different players. And I think he ended up with a game high 10 rebounds. I need to check, but that's got to be close to his career high in rebounding. And he was going after them there in the second half. Like he really flipped a switch from a physicality standpoint. And that's been, for me, one of the big question marks about him is just his rebounding and his ability to adjust to physical basketball. And I think, maybe the question isn't answered completely moving forward, but he answered it enough for tonight to help Carolina win. So I wanted to shout him out as well too, because those rebounds, a couple of blocks were huge. I know he missed the and one, but he made the two technicals earlier. So really good performance from him after a kind of shaky first half.
You're right at mentioning him, and I had him on my notes to mention that because I think it was a huge play, and I did say it a little bit earlier. When you get hit in the face, it wakes you up, and certainly that's the most he's had at Carolina. The previous high was 9 at State in a game that they had to have him. And so I don't have his Alabama stats here in front of me, but yeah, he stepped up, and he's another one of those guys that takes pressure off Veesaar and Caleb Wilson when he's out there to get him off, so they don't have to do so much, and they can sort of not coast, but they don't have to go and get every single rebound. So Jarin Stevenson, Sherrell, you're correct. Give him flowers. Anybody else we want to give flowers to before we move on?
No, I mean it's one of those, not. It's just it felt like one of those old school Carolina wins where there's really nothing. I guess Luka's 6 threes were impressive, but there's nothing like to write home about. It's just, they were against a team who really needed a good win. They were trying to close out, a perfect season at home, and they found a way to win. And that's for Carolina for too often, and I guess over the last really 8 years, that's just not been the case where they bring their C- or their D+ game and still find a way to win. And that is what they've been doing here in this stretch without Caleb Wilson. So, Hubert Davis and the staff, again, we buried them after the California trip, and rightfully so, because they were playing terribly. But if you're going to criticize them, then you need to praise them when they do well. And it's been a really, for me, astonishing 3 weeks without Caleb Wilson. I thought they were going to go 1-6. I'll be honest. I thought they were going to beat Pittsburgh and then not win again until Caleb Wilson came back, and they have completely flipped the script. So kudos to them. And I did look it up. That is, I'm pretty sure, just on a quick glance, that is a career high for Jarin Stevenson, the first time he's had 10 or more rebounds in a game in his career.
It's impressive. Let's before we move off of this game, let's look. So what's your take on refereeing, Sherrell? What does your group chat say about refereeing? Because I am not a ref guy.
I honestly, I don't really pay much attention to it. Like, I'll look at the foul counts. Obviously, back to Duke game, you saw that Carolina had one foul in the second half. That was something that caught people's eyes. They're out there doing the best they can. I know nobody wants to hear that. So I just kind of take it with a grain of salt. There's going to be some calls that your team hates, and there's going to be some calls that your team gets. I mean, Veesaar really had 6 fouls because he pushed a guy over one time and they didn't call it. I thought Veesaar traveled a couple of times, they didn't call it. But on the other side, Zayden High loses 2 points for no reason because a referee just blows his whistle. Veesaar got hit in the face a couple of times, they didn't call it. So I feel like everybody's trying their best, and they're going to get some wrong. That's part of human error. I do not want to go to robot referees or anything. So you just you gotta kind of live with the inconsistency and adjust as good as you can. So for me, I'm not saying anybody who talks about refereeing is wrong, but for me, I don't pay a ton of attention.
You said it better than I ever could. I mean, look at these people clowning me, man. Wearing 3 stripes. I probably had some, but I did not wear Chucks because we couldn't wear.
Were there other sneakers back then? Tell me. I don't know any. I don't know about these days.
I had all the Jordans, man. I had the original Jordans, and my mom threw them away.
Oh no!
Think about how much they would be worth right now. But anyway, we could shoot the breeze. Folks don't want to hear us shoot the breeze here. I do that enough with around everywhere. If you want to shoot the breeze, you can catch me at a baseball game. That's where I am most of the time. But Sherrell, let's look ahead. Like I said before, 1,400 people in the chat. Let's talk about Duke a little bit and Carolina's matchup with Duke. If Caleb Wilson comes back, he says he's coming back or he says he wants to come back. Either way, it's a tall ask for Carolina in that building. And if nobody's ever seen a game, have you ever seen a Carolina Duke game over there?
Not a Carolina Duke game, no. Well, not a men's Carolina Duke game.
But you've seen games over there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's loud then. It is ridiculously loud. It's not. We had a discussion somewhere. It's not an angry loud in Cameron. It's just a loud because they're on top of you. It's an angry loud in Raleigh. But your thoughts on this matchup for Carolina? I mean, obviously they beat them once. And you mentioned the one foul called in the second half. I doubt if it goes the way the women's games went, Carolina didn't shoot a foul shot the first time they played Duke over there. Sunday in Carmichael, they shot 27 or something like that. So you don't want that kind of flip-flop. But what do you think about the matchup, Carolina going over there? Caleb Wilson, if he plays, let's assume he plays. Your thoughts on how Carolina matches up? I think they match up well, but
this Duke team has been on a roll since they lost to Carolina. And I mean, historically, there aren't many teams who are going on the road in the ACC and winning by 25 and 30 every single night. That said, I don't think it's obviously it's not an unbeatable Duke team because Carolina's already beat them. But the matchup, what happened last time, they were able to get Gamba and Veesaar and Brown in foul trouble, and then they took advantage of it when they were coming back there in the second half. I don't know if you can count on that, especially with you said with Caleb Wilson. I don't know if you can count on that either way in Cameron. They're going to have to make shots. I think the good thing, Duke, for whatever reason, with all the talent and with, the depth that they have, they play a very slow tempo. And I think that's one of the reasons they've had, they've only lost 2 games, but one of the reasons they've had some issues with closing out games because they never, even though they have the ability to stretch it out just through sheer execution in the half court. Imagine if they really push tempo with the players they have and try to get into the 75, 76, 76, 78 possessions as opposed to 64, 65. So by nature, it feels like they keep their opponents in the game a little bit because of how they play. So if you can bump them off their spots a little bit in the half court, again, I think it's the same strategy that they had, or I think it'll be a different strategy than they had last time. Last time, they double Cameron Veesaar pretty much every possession, it felt like. And in the first half, Veesaar, I think he had 3 threes maybe. And so that was really hurting Carolina. In the second half, they played him a little bit more straight up and tried to hold off everybody else. So I'm interested to see if they do that full time and, do you stick Zayden High in there for a whole bunch to eat up some fouls? Do you put Veesaar on them? Just how they approach Cameron Veesaar this time, because you have to think they'll assume that because what they did last time, they'll do something similar. Because that was one of his worst games. I mean, I think he was 10 of 23, but he still had 23 or 24 points or something. So yeah, I think if Carolina can speed them up a little bit, get them into a faster tempo than they are normally comfortable playing with, and then find a way to keep Veesaar out of foul trouble, they can hang around. But it really is going to come down to, tonight, they're going to have to hit a bunch of shots, especially if Caleb Wilson isn't playing.
How do you, with Veesaar, I'm of the opinion if he wants to sit out there and shoot threes, let him. I mean, he's going to make a fair share, but I'd much rather him be a 3-point shooter against me than driving inside. To your point about the Veesaar fouls, I mean, Veesaar has to stay on the floor for Carolina to have a chance.
Well, and that's the thing if you're a Duke fan, so great about Boozer. If you're not, so frustrating about him, is that he doesn't seem to get too tempted by doing a lot of stuff. He's just a super solid dude who will get on the block and find a way to muscle through you and get to the free throw line. I mean, this is what he is. This is what he's always done in high school in AAU. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to be like a blowout or anything. When the line comes out, it'll probably be Duke by like Duke minus 14, minus 13, something like that, which is a crazy number. But that shows the respect that people have been giving him for how they've played, I would say, the last 5 or 6 games. But, Carolina, they should have the confidence. They did come back and beat them, something only one other team has done this season. But I do think it's going to come down to just like carrying Carolina, make enough shots to hang around, not be down 10 or 15 at the under 8 timeout, be up or be down like 5, at the under 4, and then find a way to make the plays in the clutch, because that is something this team has shown it can do. And maybe that becomes a skill set of finding ways to win, at the under 4 timeout.
Indeed. It always delivers. Jay Billis says something right once in a while, and that's it. It always delivers, and I'm sure it will again. If it's 14 or 13 and a half, who are you taking?
Well, I'm going by the metrics. Like if you look at Torvik and KenPom and all the other ones, it's around 13 points is what the expectation is. Let me look at KenPom right now. So I'm keeping myself honest, and you can vamp here for a second.
People in the chat said they want us to shoot the breeze, so here we are.
Yeah. So 16. KenPom predicts a 16-point Duke win, and Torvik, I think I checked it earlier. I think that was 13.7. Give me 1 second. This is not great radio, but that's all right.
In the meantime, while Sherrell's looking, click the like button, please, on this YouTube channel. I want to see more than 1,000 likes. We've had like 990 some likes on one of these before. I want to see over 1,000. Make it happen, folks.
14.8 on Torvik. So the two of the bigger, more well-known, predictive metrics sites, formulas, have Duke by 16 and Duke by 14.8, so essentially 15. So I think you'll see a spread around 13. And the thing with the metrics, and I know it's a point of contention for Carolina fans, like the metrics can't kind of measure. There's not like a rivalry quotient or this is my last regular season college game, part of the algorithm. So there's some things it can't weigh, but just looking at what the two teams have done up to this point, that's what it's spitting out. And Vegas usually isn't far from those numbers. So even if they started a little low right now, based on that, it's going to be like 13 points.
That'll be an interesting line. Not that I do that. I don't put money. I don't chase bad money. I'm terrible at it. I was looking at mine, and I'm in the negative, and then I see people winning like crazy. So I'm going to stay away from that one. But if you're so inclined, Sherrell just broke it down for you. Sherrell, I'm going to get us out of here. We've been on here 35 minutes, a little longer than normal, but it's always fun to talk to Sherrell McMillan about Carolina basketball. The man is as level-headed as it gets, even if he pretends to be younger than he is, because, yeah, I'm going to go. It's Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Shout out to them. Go to support them. They've got new baseball jerseys. They've got the white pins baseball jerseys, pinstripes for those that don't know the lingo. Johnny T-Shirt, a sweet jersey. It's probably the best uniform in all of Carolina athletics. That one, go get it at Johnny T-Shirt. And also rate, review, subscribe. Join Inside Carolina if you're not a member. And do me a favor, and Sherrell, this would be something interesting for you to drop a question for Greg and me. Tomorrow at noon, Greg Barnes is going to join me on a live Next Level. We're going to talk about the arena debate. There's going to be a lot of articles and a lot of information coming out tomorrow morning about the Smith Center renovation or rebuilding or building in a new location. And Greg and I will go live at noon to talk about it on Next Level. So everybody that's listening to this, set an alert. Join us. Sherrell, it's always fun, my friend.